since then, 1998, been living in China. I mean, Kunming, Hainan, Shaoxing, Guangzhou, Dalian, and then Beijing.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the policies in China became more and more restrictive, we were quarantined with magnets on our doors.
A sensor that lets them know.
Yeah, how many times you open the door.
Isn't that scary?
And we could open the door 5 times a day, but certain point, mental health and well-being becomes much more important.
Cole Fogel here, and today I am in the beautiful sunny Taipei.
That's right, sitting on the rooftop of a building.
I should introduce you. Okay, so what's your name, sir?
Yeah, my name's Theo Cope.
Theo Cope. And Cope sounds familiar because I interviewed my very good friend of over 20 years, Dominic. Mm-hmm. You're his father.
Yes.
I'm excited to chat with you because I know your son very well, and it's not often you get to make a video with the dad. I feel like I'm literally sitting with an older version of Dominic. It's kind of tripping me out. It's like Dominic with a ponytail. Isn't this beautiful?
Yeah.
Like, how many years have you been growing this lovely, long...
Well, actually, before I moved to China, I had longer hair and I had my earrings. But then I moved to China, I took off my earrings for job interviews, had my hair short. And once I got the job, I put the earrings back.
Came to your senses and realized this is who I am.
I figure at this age, at that time, was 5 years ago, I was 61 years old, right?
It's professorly, though,
It's like,
I think.
I figure, what the heck? If they're going to look at me and at 61 years old, I have a ponytail and I'm doing psychotherapy, it's like, and?
I feel like this is what a psychotherapist would do. They would have a long ponytail.
And I'm glad I just have hair.
So, where are you from originally?
Well, born in Iowa, raised in California, Oregon, mostly left coast, and then moved when I was 42 years old with Dominic. He had mentioned that in the video, right? We moved into Kunming, China. And since then, 1998, been living in China, except 15 months living in Panama, and then back into China. So.
Interesting. Why Panama?
At that time, I was in a relationship, and my partner moved there.
What was Panama like?
It was beautiful, but it was like going from Beijing, a city of only 21 million people, to
only 21 million.
Panama, a country of like 2 to 3 million people, in a little city where it's more dogs and chickens than there were people.
And you were there for how long?
15 months.
And then back to Kunming, China?
No, back into Beijing.
Oh, back to Beijing,
Yeah. I'd moved, Kunming, Hainan, Shaoxing, Guangzhou, Dalian, and then Beijing.
Well, so you got to know China.
Yeah, traveled around a bit.
Which is exciting because probably the foods and the people and the energy is different in each city?
It is. And at that time, in 1998, there were more bicycles than cars, and then there became more cars than bicycles, and now there's equal amount of each.
Your son has mentioned to me that you've had many different careers, which I think is very interesting to my viewers. What was your first job originally? Well,
it depends on how far back you want to go. But I was 13. I was working for my mom at her building and raking leaves and sweeping, and then newspaper, and then busboy in a restaurant. And then at 17, I left home, went into the Air Force, and became a teacher. Yeah, instructing pilots.
Cool.
And then cook, and then university. Then mailman for 10 years.
That's an interesting
That
one.
was interesting, yeah. Worked there for 10 years, dreamt about it for 25 years.
Wow, after you left.
After I left, many times right before I wake up, there's a postal dream.
I have this with videos where I'm dreaming about making videos.
Oh, okay.
Like, did you like it though?
I loved it, yeah. It was wonderful out walking for hours every day.
It's a very noble job. Delivering mail is like one of the oldest jobs in history, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So after mailmanning, then I did carpentry for a few years. I worked with a couple of guys in Ohio who literally were 5th generation carpenters. These guys were skilled artisans. But it's one of the most challenging jobs I've ever done. And then moved into China with Dominic and started doing teaching.
Okay, so from carpentry you moved to China.
Yeah, and then I was teaching at high school and then university.
Cool.
And I was doing counseling on the side as well for some of the students. And then 2014 moved into Beijing at that time International SOS Medical Clinic and started doing counseling psychotherapy.
Wow. So you from postman to carpentry to psychology.
Yeah. Yep.
What a diverse life.
It was quite challenging, quite interesting, yes.
Okay, and so you were in China from 1998 till...
December 21st, 2022.
You put a lot of time into living in China.
A lot of time. Yeah, it wasn't something that I intended. I
Yeah.
think like Dominic had mentioned in the video,
Yeah.
he didn't intend to be in
fell
Taiwan
into it.
for 22 years. But yeah, I loved life there. I loved the people there. The food, of course, is great.
Yeah, is the food, each area of China that you've lived has different foods?
Yeah, very different.
What was your favorite dish or dishes when you lived in China?
水煮鱼片.
What's that?
Boiled, sliced boiled fish and with bean sprouts with pepper on top. Mala tang also.
Mala, that's popular in Taiwan as well.
Yeah. So that was one of my favorite. And hot pot. Huoguo, who doesn't love a good huoguo?
Okay, and then you moved away from China. I guess there were a lot of rules that were going on during the pandemic. Is that what brought you out of China?
Yeah, when February, 2020, when the pandemic epidemic at that time was first spreading, I was in the United States.
Oh, okay.
I was working as head of the mental health department for Raffles Hospital at the time.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, I should come back into China. So all the workers in the airport were in full hazmat suits.
Scary. I feel sorry for them.
Oh boy, yeah. And then stayed there for the duration of the pandemic, working as a psychotherapist, right? Helping people who were locked down, people who were locked out of China.
Yeah. Oh.
But it got to be really problematic because you go somewhere and there's a case in the city and you don't get back into Beijing.
Because they had a zero policy, right?
Zero
at the time?
tolerance, that's right.
Which is asking a lot of the people, because I think, how do you keep something zero anywhere? Like, that's very challenging, right?
Well, some people think they can control nature. Yeah, so at first we were living a normal life.
Yeah.
We had scanning. You had to scan. You went into the store, to a shopping mall, scan into every store, scan into restaurants.
So at the point, I guess Taiwan was closed, so you weren't able to come here and hang out with your son. You had to stay where you were basically at that point.
Yeah, and even family members. My mother had passed in 2021. And
that sucks.
Yeah,
that
it was
time.
really awful for lots of people, right?
Yeah, of course.
But she was 88. She had a good life, and we had good communication all the time, and it's inevitable.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the policies in China became more and more restrictive, and it's just over the top, in my opinion. We got locked down in October because I went to a corner booth, as I needed to do, to be tested for the coronavirus, and did the swab test. Got a phone call 2 days later saying, hey, somebody was at that same booth 2 hours before you. And so we were quarantined with magnets on our doors for...
What does that mean, magnets
7
on
days?
your doors?
You have one magnet on the door frame, one on the door. You open the door.
So
and
they know they have a sensor that lets them know
how many times you open the door.
Isn't that scary?
And we could open the door 5 times a day if we need to put out trash or get deliveries. So, first time, but open the door, message literally on WeChat, which is the social media in
the
China.
One, yeah.
It's like seconds. Why'd you open the door?
Because they call you right away.
Yeah.
Text or call?
Text message. So, anyhow, after that, it's just got to the point where myself and my wife, who is, a principal at one of the early childhood centers for an international school there, it's just like after that lockdown, something within us just said, I don't have to tolerate this. I'm not going to tolerate this anymore.
It's too much, yeah.
It's too much, and we could make a choice. And had the consequences of it because of, jobs and everything else, but certain point, mental health and well-being becomes much more important than finance.
And your heart must hurt when you think about it. The people that actually live there don't have the luxury of getting up and leaving the way you do.
Yeah.
You're what's your job title now?
Well, now I'm semi-retired, but psychotherapist.
So as a psychotherapist, I think you would agree there's going to be, and there is now and continue to be for several years, a lot of horrible mental illnesses from these measures that all the countries were taking.
Yeah. We see for teenagers an increase of eating disorders,
suicide?
To control something, suicide, self-harming, anxiety, depression because of lack of social contact.
Yeah.
For young children, these kids grow up and they only know masks.
Right, it's scary. So, the kindergarten kids.
Yeah. It's my understanding in Taiwan is it's not mandatory you wear a mask out on the streets, right?
But people continue.
But people continue.
Do you think it's more fear or habit that people are wearing masks still?
I think both.
Or a bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I had some people, when I was working with them, they didn't want to take their mask off because it made them feel more secure, even though there's questionable evidence around the
there's
efficacy.
a bit of placebo, like there's a safety, emotional safety in their minds to wearing it, maybe.
Yes.
Even though I don't like wearing one personally, is if it makes you feel safer and happier, then you're less stressed. So for those people, maybe it's not a bad idea if it's helping them emotionally.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
But for those of us where it makes us emotionally ill, I am happy that the mandates are dropped because it doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
And I hope that everyone cannot be polarized about these answers and just love each other as a human race, you know?
Yeah, and recognize we're trying to figure this out too, right?
Together.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so you came here, which is great because your son is here, so reunion, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about 16-year-old Dominic. You gave him a choice. You were like, I'll wait till you're 18 and then I'll move without you, or you can come with me now at 16, right?
Yeah, because he is at a point where could have gotten into a good polymer science program, and the high school in Kent, Ohio, which is where we were living.
Okay, yeah.
And so I didn't want to just make the decision and have him, give that up, because that would have been pretty cool for his future too, right? So as he mentioned, he wasn't going to school. He didn't finish his high school diploma until after he came into Taiwan and after he studied Chinese for a couple of years, which is probably more important for him than finishing high school.
Way
right?
more educational than any, whatever.
Yeah. So he was very adventurous, came here when I first came into Taiwan, and his friends would come up and meet me and they said, wow, I wanted to meet Dominic's father. He's such an awesome guy.
That was me. That's why we're here.
And for me, it was like, really humbling. Dominic's a good
He's a good
man.
boy.
He's
Yeah.
a good kid.
It's always your boy, though.
That's right.
And as I get to know you, like you and your son you look similar, and you're both gentle beings, which I think he gets from you probably. So, can you give me like 2 or 3 parenting tips? Do you have any advice for myself and anyone watching about like things that you could be mindful of as a parent that would help the child grow into being a better grown-up, and also your relationship with each other?
Yeah, first one that comes to my mind is consistency. As a parent, we need to be consistent. If we say we're going to do something, we need to do it. Even if a kid, oh, mom, oh, dad, and you say, oh, okay, then I'm not going to do it. Then they learn, right?
Habit forming.
Yes. You're going to set a discipline or some kind of consequence for your child.
Yeah.
And they do what you tell them not to do. You've got to be willing to put in the consequence. So you've got to be calm and rational and say, okay, I can hold through it. And if your kids say, no, I'm sorry, say, yeah, I understand, but you did this.
And we said this is how it was going to go down.
That's right. And then as they get older and become more reliable, responsible, okay, then you can maybe negotiate or help them to understand, right?
Yeah.
So consistency is one. The other one is, I think, for us to make a distinction is the emotional component and the contact, love, care, pleasure. Is all that more important, or is it to be obedient and clean and orderly and patient?
But do you think, because we all have childhood traumas of our own, that the idea of what you said about the loving and the nurturing is beautiful, but what if you as a human being didn't have that love and nurturing? It might be hard for you.
Well, yeah, it is, because that's how we've learned, right?
Because that's,
if you've learned that you have to have things in a particular order, and if you're late by 5 minutes or 2 minutes, you get in trouble.
If you don't fulfill this or that,
That's right.
Conditional love.
Right.
And if we could learn to love our children unconditionally, it would be so much healthier.
Yeah, that's a great ideal. But
it's a great ideal.
Even a parent who's a great parent who really puts their child first may say, their kid says, hey, mom, would you, read a book to me, right? And mom says, sure, go ahead and wash your hands first or brush your teeth, right? So we have to follow the order.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah, so
okay.
That's the other one to recognize. Is the emotional connection more important to you as a parent than the behaviors? And they're both important, but it's a matter of
recognizing. To me, it's more important, but I think the other may be more important to a lot of people.
Yes, sure. Again, because we grow up learning that this is what we need to do in order to be able to get the love from our parents.
And also to function in the way the system is designed. Parents may be more authoritarian because their parents were authoritarian,
Yeah.
and then the school system is often designed in an authoritarian way. And then you get a job, and then your boss is authoritarian to you unless you're your own boss. And so we're programmed often in society to obey authority in a way that isn't necessarily optimally healthy to ourselves as human beings.
Sometimes that's true, and then
Yeah.
on the other hand, too much laissez-faire, right? I'll do whatever you want
Yeah,
to
I
do.
know.
It's okay. Yeah, don't brush your hair. Don't brush your teeth. Okay, fine.
A healthy balance.
Absolutely.
But I think we're still trying to figure that out, a healthy balance.
Yeah, and I think it's the fascinating element is what may be balanced for you may not be
Exactly.
balanced for me,
yeah, that
right?
too. And different countries as well.
Exactly. Yeah, in different stages of development. So consequences, being able to hold to those, being able to recognize the emotional need versus the behavioral expectation. And I think the third one is just sense of humor, you know? And my mom taught all of us about a good sense of humor. But to be honest, I think there are some parents that they should never have been parents. They are.
Agreed.
They're toxic.
So many people.
Yeah, and the kids have to learn how to say, yeah, you gave birth to me,
Yeah.
but it's not good for me to be in a relationship
I think
with
certain cultures, it's a problem. Like in Asian culture, people are expected to get. I mean, it's that cookie cutter kind of job, house, car, marriage, children.
you. Yeah.
And so they might not even think, should I or shouldn't I be a parent? They just do it because it's part of the program.
Yes.
I feel sorry for the parents and for the children because the toxicity, I mean.
Yeah.
Not everyone's meant to be married. Not everyone's meant to have children. Not everyone's meant to have a 9-to-5 job. We don't need to follow the same program. We can be individual about how we live our lives.
Yes, yeah, and
I
that's
don't know
the
what-
idea that pops into my mind is, you know, the idea of individuation.
Which is less prevalent here in Asia because they are raised from childhood to think collectively.
Yes.
Maybe people still wearing masks outside right now because collectively, you know, Joe looks around and goes, okay, Sally and Jimmy and Bobby are wearing them. Okay, I'll just keep wearing it. But then if everyone does that, then no one's ever going to stop wearing it.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important for your listeners that
Yeah.
you recognize the difference between individualism and individuality, right?
Yes.
Because we're all individuals, but we don't have to have this extreme individualism
No, it's
that I
not
think,
healthy.
you know, the United States has.
Yes. What are the things that you've been loving or enjoying about Taiwan since you've been here?
One thing that I've always noticed and have really appreciated is that the relationship between the Taiwanese, by and large, is much more peaceful.
Ah.
I mean, the way that they talk to each other is less harsh than it is in China. It's more respectful, I feel. It's not as demanding. That's one of the things I think is really different. And of course, being with my son
Yeah.
and his wife and grandkids and that kind of family time. Yeah, so being able to go out and, you know, to Lalashan, to Ilan, different places around, you know, Taipei,
Yeah.
has been beautiful.
I have one
Yeah.
more question to ask you. You are how old?
66?
Can I acknowledge you're a very handsome 66-year-old man? What's your secret? Like, can you give me, what are some of the main things that you do at 66 to look as healthy as you look?
First thing, you know, shout out to my mom and dad, good DNA. And then my bachelor's degree was in gerontology, the study of aging.
Ah,
And so I began seeing older people and things they weren't doing well.
you had a hands-on perspective.
Yeah, working in nursing homes, retirement homes. So I exercise, I do yoga 2-3 times a week. Meditation, I used to do more. I'll be picking that back up again. You know, good diet. There was a period of my life when I was very strict vegetarian.
Okay.
And then some meat and, you know, off and on. But I'll do exercising when I can. My knee is a part of my body that's not as healthy as other parts because I had a surgery when I was a kid. You know, a good sense of humor, being able to take life lightly.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I used to be quite serious and think I understood about existence. And the older I got, the more I realized, yeah, I don't know.
So okay, I guess I'll finish with a final thought. Why are we here?
I used to think that it was because there was a deity, a God, like, that created something for us to know and to love, worship, and be kind to people.
There's a potential there.
Yeah. The other one was from a purely scientific, materialistic point of view, because sperm and the egg come together, and the body emerges after the Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
Of course, people believe in reincarnation. People who've had near-death experiences, by and large, they come back and they say what's most important is the nature of the relationships that we make. And so perhaps that's a part of it too,
What is the meaning of life to you?
To help others, to be of service to other people, and to be, to respect this body that was given to me. When I started it, therapy is a sacred, to me, a very sacred kind of thing, right? Because you're helping another person.
Intimate.
It is very intimate. And you're helping them to heal, and that's part of the existence. When I work with people professionally, there are certain people that I have to learn from them. Are they willing to really face this part of their self?
Yeah.
And
not everyone is.
Not everyone is. And I
that's
literally,
okay.
I've had people tell me, no, I don't want to talk about that.
Have you had people swear at you like,
no, of course.
Who or what has inspired you in your life that you would want to share with the audience?
One of them really is an Iranian by the name of Mirza Hussein Ali. He's the founder of the Baha'i religion, which began in 1844, and I was part of that religion for 35 years. Baha'i, yeah. And that's one of the reasons I went to China. But when I got there and I began investigating deeper, I realized that I could no longer believe in it as a religion. But to me, the philosophy of it is very similar to all the other religious systems. So that's one. And then my best friend Nasan, who is also Persian, my brother from another mother. I've known him longer than I've known Dominic. I would be very different without Nasan in my life. Also, very much influenced by the psychology of Carl Jung. So I've, studied all of his writings.
He's great.
He's a very interesting man.
Yeah.
And then also a Spanish philosopher named Javier Zubiri, who I've studied for about 20 years.
Where is Theo in 10 years? What do you hope you've achieved or accomplished? Where would you like your life to be 10en years from now?
I hope I'm still healthy. I hope I can get a knee replacement if I need to.
I hope you can too. I believe you'll have a robotic part by then,
maybe,
I would imagine.
Maybe. That I'm still able to go bike riding and a guy named Irvin Yalom, who is an existential psychotherapist, still talk to people and still help them and be able to face death with a great sense of dignity. It's coming closer.
To be accepting of death, I guess, is something that I wish that we can all attain, because it's scary to most people, the idea of dying.
Yeah, it is. I've worked with people who have dying. I've done courses on it. I used to say I help people die, but people say, what did you do? Say, well, I made them comfortable, kept them clean. But yeah, it's going to happen for everybody.
Well, Theo, I feel like we could probably talk for another hour. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.
Yeah, enjoy the life, enjoy today, because you don't know if you're going to get tomorrow.
Well said. And with
Thanks,
that,
Cole.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, you bet.